Hello, folks. There's a cluster of videos I'm releasing this morning, Sunday morning, and they have a similar theme. I did the best you this weekend, the best you. It's hard to, it makes more sense when you read that, the best you, Y-O-U, not E-W-E. It wasn't like a sheep convention. And it was a big personal development exhibition that was held in London. And myself and Richard Willett were there promoting just awareness of the documentary Plugged In. The videos that I'm releasing this morning share a theme around connectivity for overcoming loneliness, and not just overcoming loneliness in some sort of vague, poetic sense of, ennui or melancholia, but actually from a neurobiological point of view, or at least moving towards a hypothesis of saying there's a neurobiology to this, where if you are connected with other human beings, your neurobiological profile in terms of the hormones and the neurotransmitters, some of which we can observe and test for, some of which we can't, it's hard, will actually improve. And that the increased use of an unboundaried, unstructured, non-disciplined use of social media and of tech actually damages that profile. It actually damages that neurobiological profile. This is a hypothesis. Am I looking to get a paper published on it? Nah, I'll leave that to the academics. For me, it's a useful way of talking about the subject in order to get people to take it seriously. Like, you don't feel good. Okay. Is it possible there is a neurobiological thing that is occurring as a result of you not feeling good that is then causing you to alter your behavior? Because what did we learn from cognitive behavioral therapy? We learned that your thoughts affect your feelings, and your feelings affect your actions, and your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all affect each other. So you can be spiraling down sometimes, or you can be sometimes spiraling upwards, just feeling better and better. And so there seems to be a modality in which we're comfortable generally in having this conversation. It is known, Khaleesi. There are like these things, these coordinates that are it's just a given. If you're depressed, you take an antidepressant, and that helps with the uptake of your serotonin, and then you are no longer depressed. Never mind the body of published research that is peer-reviewed by scientists that indicates that that might not be what's going on, and that might not be the best solution. Never mind that. We're comfortable with that paradigm. That's my problem. I don't want to get into a big argument over that, because quite honestly, I haven't read enough of the research material, the recent research material, to even really have a stance on that. I just put a question mark over it. I put a question mark over the whole assumption, the idea that because if you're depressed and you show up with low serotonin levels, that therefore your low serotonin levels caused your depression. That seems a little bit clunky, and I'm far from being the only person who thinks that. More, I want people to look at, in a very materialistic way, what their hormones are doing and what their neurotransmitters are doing, what the endogenous drugs of your body are already doing for you. Endogenous means the one that your body is producing. If you inject something and it comes from the outside, that's called exogenous. So what are your endogenous drugs doing for you today? Because we have the capacity to make drugs inside of our body that make us feel whatever. We're more focused, more optimistic, happier, more cheerful, more physically energized, somatic feelings of energy, of feeling energized. And they are produced clean. They have no side effects. They can't become addictive. They don't line the pockets of big pharma. It's being produced by you, for you, in exactly the right dosages. And maybe we should start to look at, because I suspect that this is the next frontier in psychology, is going to be hormones and neurotransmitters. There's only so far talking can go. And we're starting to realize that we've been starting to realize this for decades, probably since the 60s and 70s. There seems to be a limit to how far we can go through just talking back and forth, which makes sense, right? We have another thing that it is known, Khaleesi, it's just a accepted cultural coordinate, is the idea of therapy being a sort of a magical process. Well, what is it? It's two humans with, eyes and ears and bum holes and socks sitting in a room exchanging mouth and throat noises that are symbolic representations of external and internal reality. Also pretty clunky, not very nuanced, not very subtle, not very streamlined. That it ever works at all really is a miracle, but it does to a certain degree. So I want people focusing in on the somatic experience. The somatic experience is not a great term. I think I started talking about it towards the beginning of last year, or maybe a little bit before. I wanted to talk about that area between biology and between pure psychology, where you just feel that way, because not all of your emotions, first of all, sometimes it can be hard to distinguish between one feeling and another. And sometimes an emotion is more cognitive than it is physical, and sometimes more physical than it is cognitive. So in that gray area, it's like somatic feeling. I don't think I can call it somatic experiencing, because then that conflates it with a system of therapy called somatic experiencing. So like whatever your sort of somatic subjective report would be about it. How does using social media for hours on end make you feel? How does sitting on your phone and staring into the screen make you feel? So I've stopped using social media. But then I noticed I was on too much screen time. I'm just still on the phone. Okay, after work. So I'm checking my emails and I'm doing this and that, whatever, checking the names and the phone numbers of businesses that I need to get in contact with. Fine. But I'm still online for too long. So I reduced my screen time. This week, I'm down 30% from last week. Guess what? Straight away, I feel better. Most people on the best you, when I was doing the talks and we were on the stand, most people were like, yeah, social media is bad. Some people were like, no, it's neutral. It's a pH neutral medium. And they said, I've seen the research on it, and it says we should wait. We should wait to see what the conclusion is. We don't know. Some people say it's positive. Some people say it's negative. And I'm like, no, you haven't. You haven't read the research, because that's not what the research indicates. I actually have read the research. I don't read research much. I usually go through a burst of being bothered to read psychological studies, and it's usually yearly. It's like once every 12 months or less. So I'm in that burst right now. If you were to do a meta-analysis of the published research that's come out since 2009 on social media usage and body dysmorphia, self-esteem, objectification of the self, anxiety, depression, self-harm, addiction, and suicide, it is overwhelmingly conclusive that more social media usage makes you mentally sicker, and less social media usage makes you mentally healthier. The studies on the tech alone, there isn't that much, but it lies within a similar sort of direction, that being connected and being involved in your tech all the time is not great. You'll notice this morning I've got my specs on, but you've seen me in some videos I'm wearing it, sometimes I'm not. So this morning I'm reading research papers. If I do more than 3 hours, I'm talking about tech usage now. If I do more than 3 hours of tech, I need these, because my eyes just go, ugh, I just can't be bothered. But in the last 2 weeks, I really made an effort to be speaking to people face to face and less online, and I stopped using them. The glasses actually made my eyesight worse. So I was adapting. So my eyes are physically adapting to how much tech and how much social media or let's just call it screen time. How much screen time I'm engaged in. It's damaging my body. And then I can, if I stop for 2 weeks, that I so don't need these spectacles that if I put them on, it hurts my eyes and I can't see. So my body then adapts the other way. There's a whole systemic physiological adaptation here. As I said in the talk yesterday, which I'll put it on YouTube as soon as the best you gives it to me. We are way past brainwashing here. We're in the propagandists' wet dream territory right now. They're not washing brains. It's like that's like that's the last century. This is conditioning physiology. This is rewiring the dopamine reward system of the human being. This is playing with your hormones. This is playing with your neurotransmitters. This is not brainwashing. Brainwashing is done. We're brainwashed. This is body conditioning, physiology conditioning, and endocrine system, the endocrinal system conditioning. This is something else. This is biological. This is like the hardwiring of the flesh now. Software, we got that. Now it's time to work on conditioning the hardware. And the phones that we're using, I claim, are deliberately doing that. Now, is that the same thing as saying all social media is bad? No, here I am on YouTube, which it's some people argue that it's not social media. I would say if you can get likes and followers and have a profile and talk to people, it's social media. Okay, it's not Instagram, it's not Facebook, but it's still social media. I met Richard Willett, who's the guy I worked with in order to do the documentary through social media. The students that I got to help me to make the documentary, the young folks in their 20 to 24 years old, I found them through social media. So using the technology with intent and with discipline makes sense. But being aware that it's like a slowly corrosive, slowly poisoning tool is useful. And then you can act accordingly. You can use your tech in a disciplined way. You can use your social media in a disciplined way with the respect for it. Not just that it's kind of like vaguely brainwashing you if you're on the left to become more of a leftist, and if you're on the right to become that's child's play. It's actually altering your physiological responses. That's why we get moodier and tetchier the more we use of it. It's quite deliberate. There's technology in place that does that. So there's two things that I want to release this morning. One is from the video that I did for 21 Studios. The whole video is like an hour-long video. It's good. I'm proud of it. It's called "Deconstructing the Female Narcissist." No, "Surviving the Female Narcissist: A Deconstruction." It's about an hour long, and I posted the link for that clip in the video, so you can see it. And the other thing I'm going to release is a part of an interview that I did with David Icke's son, Gareth Icke, for his podcast, The Non-Binary Elephant, and where we were talking about connectivity and its potential impact on biology. So I've had a lot of teachers and a lot of parents come up to me and say, what are you going to do? Like, how are you actually, you're saying that this technology is really damaging our kids and it's dangerous. What are you going to do? How are you going to fix it? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I find it addictive. I'm 40. I was born in 1978. I would like dial up phones with the big that hurt your finger the more you use them. That's tech to me. That's what I grew up with in the 1980s. This stuff now that is so advanced that I only use I think I can only use like 30% of the capacity of what my iPhone can actually do, because I don't I need to speak to people and read emails. That's it. That's all I use it for. These kids are born with it. So I was discussing it with an Uber driver on the way home last night, and he was saying, my daughter told me how to alter the settings in my iPhone that I've been using for 4 years. She's never had an iPhone, and she didn't look it up. She just sat in another room. I had a problem, and she gave me verbal instructions for how to alter the settings on an iPhone that I've been using 4 years. She's never owned one. They're like, these cyber warriors flying around in the tech world, just like light years ahead of where we will ever get to, because neuroplasticity, because their brains have adapted to the technology of the environment. It's not all bad. It's not all the worst thing in the world. It's just that having the proper respect for social media is really, really important. But where I do see hope is to bring young people back to the real world, The real world is really dull and boring if you're video gamed and Instagrammed and Facebooked, and it's everything is hypersexual, everything is hyperstimulating, everything is screeching at you, everything is hilariously funny, everything is hilariously bizarre, everything is just bleh, everything is just very much of everything all the time. The more you dip your head in that bucket, you know, I'm sat here, there's a tree outside. Last night there was mist across the fields. It was a beautiful moon. Like, how I could maybe say, hey, check it out. Don't you think that's cool? But if you told me, fuck off, mate, that's boring because you're used to that high level of stimulation, what's my next step? Like, I don't have another move to make. I'm just like, oh, the moon's beautiful. And you go, no, it's not. Anyway, I need to post on Snapchat now to keep my streak going. I don't know what that series of words means. I just know it's a sentence people say. um, the hope that I would have is to reconnect them with each other. That in a natural environment, in an environment where there is natural beauty, where we can get them outside and they can enjoy the experience. So there's a trade-off, as there would be in any therapeutic or coaching relationship. I want to take something away from you that you rely on to feel good. So I need to supply you with something else that's going to make you feel good. So that maybe we can rewire you, re-addict you, recondition you to be more into that than this. There was research just done, I think in December or November of last year, that indicated if you can convince the kids to come off the social media for 3 to 4 weeks or to significantly reduce it, then organically and automatically they use it less after that, because you've now given them a reference experience for A, I can survive without it. B, I actually don't need it that much. And C, yeah, it actually does make me feel like shit. It does make me feel worthless. It does give me anxiety and depression. I'm going to read some of the questions here. Do you think the moon increases serotonin? It does in me. It does in me. Reality is more beautiful than fantasy. Sometimes. That's Fazel. I agree with Slavoj Žižek on this one, that you need a little bit of blue pill to get through life. You need to project a little bit of fantasy onto reality to deal with it, I think. I will always be mentally prepared to see my partner harm me. I'm told if I have that fear, I'll attract it. Is that true? I say it's realistic. I think if you're, yeah, I mean, if you're mentally, I don't know about what the law of attraction and the laws of manifestation really are. I've seen some examples of it in my life, and then I see examples where it just seems to not. That doesn't seem to be the right code to get into the operating system of how reality really works, but something close to that seems to work. In psychology, pure psychology, you would be talking about self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you're holding an internalized image that's highly emotive and repeatedly focused on of an abusive partner, even if it's in their past, then yes, you're more likely to attract that in your present, because it's like hypnotic conditioning or brainwashing. You're going, though you're not consciously doing it, you think you're keeping yourself protected. What you're doing is you're going, love is abuse, man is abusive, sexual male who I have intimacy with, the unconscious levels it out this way, equals nastiness, equals cheating, equals bad emotion. So yeah, I wouldn't want to hold, I wouldn't advise holding that archetype, that avatar inside of you. It's probably not a good idea. The Barbarian report says, do you think Sam Vaknin has intellectual no-go zones? Sam Vaknin definitely doesn't have intellectual no-go zones. But he does have beliefs. There are things like he just doesn't believe, and things he does believe the same as anybody else. My drug is the ocean, Swedish West Coast and running, says somebody with a Swedish name. Very cool. Yeah, I love the sea as well. So one way of getting me connected really, really quick. So true, Richard. These kids need something else to do. You've always got to replace, haven't you? Like if somebody has an addiction, you can't just take that away. You've got to replace it. And I think if I was really clever, I'd find a way, maybe through the detox retreats, of, you remember like the Temple of Doom, where he moves the skull and puts another thing there? and he goes like that. He does it really fast. What if you had the setup where the phone is there to decrease boredom and loneliness? Well, the opposite of boredom and loneliness is stimulation and connectedness and intimacy. So what if you put them in a low pressure environment where you didn't even mention it, but they found stimulation and connectedness and intimacy as though it was a side effect of being on the detox, but not the main point. And so it kind of creeps in that way. And then at the end, you reveal, like, no, that was the whole point. It wasn't a side effect. You think that we put 10 of you together because, we just needed the numbers and that's just the way it worked. But actually, we did it so that, you'd have to talk to each other, which is going to suck a little bit. Like, I think there is almost this culturally indoctrinated introversion now. I mean, we're all nervous and socially anxious as adolescence, because that's the period to be nervous and socially anxious. But this is such a get out clause. Where is my phone? I don't even know where my phone is. I'll use this case. There it is. See my attachment anxiety. Where is it? Where's it got? It's over there. I'll live maybe. I'll pretend it's this. So you have this excuse all the time. Like, you sit down and you go, I'm a bit bored, a bit anxious. I'm in this queue. I'm at the bus stop. Fuck, what should I do? I know, I'll pull my phone out and practice having a really bad neck posture and really poor breathing patterns for 10 minutes whilst I take cheap stimulation. There's so much to this, like when I was talking about coming off social media and I said that my self-esteem increased, I realized one of the reasons why it did that is because one of the many is because it feels dirty. You don't notice it. It just kind of slips in, but using the social media to sort of stimulate yourself, it's a cheap thrill. I mean, it's the cheapest thrill, and it's deliberately designed that way. It's just short term, little release of dopamine. And I'm like, on some level, maybe on like the soul level, you just gave a tiny sliver of your soul to the Dark Lord. And you did that just so you wouldn't feel slightly bored or slightly lonely for 5 minutes. There's a guy I spoke to yesterday. We're going to interview him for the next documentary. There's a sequel coming to Plugged In. Sam Vaknin will be in it. We've got a bunch of other. There's some famous people are going to get involved in this, which is really, really cool to see. And they're going to work for free because they feel so passionately about it. And we're going to get more experts in, we're going to get more psychiatrists in to talk about it too, which is really cool. And this kid I spoke to yesterday, he's probably 23, 24 years old. He's writing a thesis on social media usage and its impact on the brain. And he said, what we're doing is we're stopping boredom. And he said, but actually the problem with that is boredom is a key emotional state for creativity. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Why did I start reading? Like, I went through 4 books and they weren't lightweight books. I wasn't reading Jack Reacher. I read Steppenwolf. It took me like 4 days. That's a classic, man. I was reading proper literature for grown-ups, for grown-up people. What else did I read? I read a bunch of Wolfie books. One was The Last Wolf, one was Steppenwolf, and one was some German title that means Defense Wolf or something. I didn't read all of that. That was too much for me. But the boredom made me read books. The boredom made me write. The boredom made me go on walks and look at nature and stuff. And I was like, I don't even consider myself addicted, but boredom is not a bad state in the same way that loneliness isn't. Because if you're lonely, that can remind you, I need to connect with people. I should be connecting with my family. I should be connecting with my friends. I should be hanging around with them. And then I'll actually get the stimulation that the device is making me thirst for, that the tech is making me thirst for. So that would be the message that I would want to be delivering to these young people on the detoxes is you're connecting with each other. And that's feeding the thirst for something false that the tech is providing you with. I'm looking for questions. With the glasses and haircut, I thought you were Sam Vaknin, lol. I've been online since the early 90s, running a BBS since before the World Wide Web. Does today's social media affect me the same way? I don't know. I'm 40. I've been online for over 28 years. The only way to know is to run the experiment. So you don't have to. I deactivated my accounts. You don't have to do that, but you do. It behooves you for 1 month of your life, which is not a long time, to at least delete the apps off your phone and to either not use them at all for 30 days or only log into them through a laptop. So there's an extra layer of hassle because you need to speak to one person. And then when you do that, the rule I gave the kids at Liverpool University who couldn't come off their phones but wanted to do a light version was no scroll. Hashtag no scroll, no scrolling. You're not allowed to move beyond where you are. You just use it and then you get off it. Terry says, how about just not allowing social media? I've not seen or heard anything good when it comes to children. I have 2 toddlers. I rarely give them candy. They don't really care. So same can go for their social media. They're toddlers. When they're 13, 14, and their mates are all on there and they're not, and the school and the university tells them to join study groups that are based on Facebook. And people that said, come off social media, they went, I can't. I'm writing a PhD and we chat on Facebook. And I'm like, well, don't. And they said, that's the university's told us to do that. The University of Liverpool has almost its own social, it's not a social media network, but it has this beautiful network that it's built. The guys and girls who make that and run that are on the same corridor as me at the Liverpool Science Park. And they've shown, like, I've had a medical student, I was chatting to him and he showed me it. And I was like, oh, I was actually quite jealous from an academic point of view. Like we would just push around pieces of horribly copied bits of photocopied paper. With this, you go online and you know where, when, where in the course you are, all the lectures, all the references. And I'm like, that's actually really, really cool. He had an app on his phone. And what was he? We got into a conversation about like antidepressants or something, and he started referencing different drugs. And he went, "Do you not use this app? It shows you this is free. You look and you can see all the different pharmacological, sources of these drugs and what they do and what they don't." I was like, oh, okay. So the tech is useful if you use the tech. It's if the tech uses you, that's a problem. But I think from the social point of view, I personally would be saying, yeah, just no social media. The one thing from reading the research, the most recent research, is Instagram. I was saying last year, I really like Instagram. I have fun on Instagram. Instagram's a nice environment, blah, 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 blah. It's been shown time and again to be the single most poisonous environment. Why? Because it's solely image based. There's nothing really there other than images. So it kind of, it encourages the reduction of the human being and of the human experience to singular spectacles and to singular pieces of imagery. I had a chat with Sam recently. We were just chatting socially, and he recommended a book to me called The Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord, which was written in 1969. Guy Debord, it's really depressing to read. He actually ended up killing himself, Guy Debord. But in terms of its prophetic insight, it's an amazing read. It is heavy, but the good thing with it is it's written into aphorisms. They're like these little Zen phrases. Everything's broken down in the book, so you can kind of enter the book at any place. It's like a hologram. You can enter the book at any place and just pick up an aphorism at random and then just contemplate it. And it's all about the crushing power of being excessively reliant on the visual, on vision as your sense for receiving the world, and then how that it has like the spectacle, the image has this tyrannical power to it. It's intrinsic to its own image. It's amazing. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it, even though I've probably read less than 30% of it, because I would just read like 3 of the aphorisms and then just go, wow, okay, go away and think about that, or whatever. Okay, I'll answer one more question and then I probably should go. Question, as a follow-on from my last question, how does one go into dating such that they immerse themselves? Ooh, I don't know. Fully immersive dating. It's done in a flotation tank. You both sit in flotation tanks and you just talk to each other via YouTube. It's immersive. I don't know. I don't know how you would. I don't know how you would immerse yourself in dating. Dating is a funny thing, really. I think now, at this precise moment in time, as I read more and have a little bit of a think about things, I think it's impossible for us to distinguish our notion of dating, attraction, and relationships from the effects of living in the society of the spectacle and from the effects of social media and its capacity to commodify ourselves and each other. Like you can't pass those two. They're welded now. So dating is one of those questions I'm like, we probably, before I answer that question, we probably need to do like, chat for a period of time about what it is, what it isn't, and pulling out the nastiness that's just kind of crept in there that probably shouldn't be there, that will hold you back in attaining the true intimacy that you seek. Vita says, thanks for all your work. It's been helping me enormously. Thanks, Vita. Glad to have helped. Can you identify N people or toxic individuals from text message conversation through text mining psychologically? I don't know what text mining is. There's definitely, I've found, I was going to do a video about it, never got around to it. The indicators through email and text for borderline personality disordered individuals, because there seem to be things that I could see again and again and again that were occurring in BPD individuals when they're communicating. So if you would say to me, tell me how to identify potential BPD through email or text, I could probably do that, but this I don't think I could do. Social media started for universities, did it not? It started in a university, but I think, no, sorry, Facebook started in a university. The Facebook was in the university. Can't remember which one though. But social media, generally, it depends on how you define what social media is. I mean, we had forums. Are we defining that as social media? I mean, there were places where you could have a profile. Certain forums you could like and follow different contributors. So, I don't know, it depends on how you define it. Oop. Oh, everything's gone. Oh, it's all back. Little Lulu says, my cell will not allow me to deactivate FB. I press deactivate and immediately a box pops up stating session expired. I think that means it's deactivated. So when I deactivate my Facebook, it says, and you say legacy account settings, are you sure you want to leave? Is it because you don't like dogs? Is it because what's your inside leg measurement? Blah, blah, blah. Tell us why you want to leave. And then you say, I definitely want to leave. Stop asking me these questions. Then it will say session expired. So you probably have deactivated it. Wait, what was the book called? Okay, the author is called Guy Debord. Guy is Guy. Guy. Debord is Debord. And the book title is Society of the Spectacle. I downloaded it onto my Kindle for about £4. Society of the Spectacle, yeah. Would studying personality disorders help understand others? Maybe. Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord. Can I ask your age? You may not. How dare you? Ask a lady her age, what country from. I'm early 30s, been smoking every day for about the last 15 years. Wowie. I'm 40. I smoked for maybe 5 years. and I am from the country of England. Complex PTSD from surviving to thriving. Is that a book? Question mark. That's a question that you can copy and paste straight into Google for your answers. Please do that video, Richard. That's so important to show about the borderlines. Yeah, maybe. Chris says, are we desexualizing as a species? Dating has decreased in society, has it not? Apparently, yeah. Apparently we are desexualizing. We're androgenizing. We are making sex and sexual attraction and sexual polarization cultural taboos, and we are neutralizing everybody, and we're trying to get everybody centered, so away from polarization. Sexual attraction can only occur when there is polarization. So yeah, probably we're looking at an issue in terms of intimacy and desexualizing. But then, I don't know, maybe the powers that be, they want to depopulate. Maybe one way of getting that done is to stop people from being interested in having sex, and stop people from being interested in enjoying having a family and enjoying having children and enjoying the human experience, so that they will just toddle off and jump into the Matrix pod quite willingly. Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord, says Christy. Well done. Jay Berger says, text mining from a forensic psychologist standpoint, I think is key to identifying toxic individuals. I think that and cold therapy needs to be expanded in the US for sure. Wow. Richard, would you do JRE? Yeah, of course. Of course I would. As a project, realistically, I'm still a little bit too small for Joe Rogan Experience, but I would think, like, if we keep moving forward, maybe in a couple of years, a year or so, that would be realistic. Because you got to look at it from their point of view. You know, they the way they run the podcasts and monetize them is they need a lot of eyeballs on the screen, which, you know, that makes sense. So you've got to look. Anybody who chooses who goes on the show has to look at what kind of, you know, who cares? Like, is this guy or is this person going to bring a following with them that is going to actually watch the show, and is it something that people are going to tune into? Ace Calher says, "Did you go NC, Richard? Do you mean North Carolina? I've never been to North Carolina. In my life, have I gone non-contact? Don't know with whom are you referring to, Ace? With whom? Nature, humans are androgenizing as a response to natural population control? Question mark. Maybe. Question. How you really feel about me? About my own diamonds and about my own rings? Question. I just have to every time. I can't stop myself. It's a compulsion. Rebecca from Honeyback says, question, how is it that what is it that makes it so healing talking to a therapist? If it is healing and not shaming and irritating and annoying, it's because you have a compassionate witness, which I'm recently finding is a key element to human psychology, thanks to conversations I've had with Sam Vaknin and the lecture that he did, that I attended in London, that's called To Be Seen. Watch the Sam Vaknin lecture, To Be Seen. There's a critical part of human psychology that it relates to being witnessed and to being heard. And if we're not seen, we get really, really sick. So if you're seen and if you're heard by a compassionate adult and they're inside that vulnerable space, which is, you know, because it's probably not normal for you to talk about, I don't know, whatever you're there for, like the issues with your husband or arguments you've had with him, or the way it makes you feel and how that reminds you of the way your father used to make you feel when you were 8. These are questions that these are subjects you probably don't open up about with your mates. You probably don't open up about them with many people. So there's an intimacy in the therapist-client relationship that can be, when it's handled skillfully and well, can be extremely healing, just to be heard and just to be seen in that space with compassion, without judgment, and with acceptance. And that seems to be something that is legitimately healing and can bring out good elements in people. Have you ever been used as a forensic psychology witness in legal cases, as an expert witness for these personality types? People have tried. Americans have tried. I've had famous Americans try and get me to do it, and I always refuse. Expert witness testimony is something that for a British person, it's really weird. It's a really odd thing, the way it's used within the American legal system. I don't like it. I don't like the way it's used in the American legal system. I think it's wrong. I think it's frequently exploited and abused. Yeah, I've had really high profile cases ask me to get involved. Will I get sued for this? Fuck them. They can try and sue me. Cranks. The Trayvon Martin case, they tried to pull me in on the Trayvon Martin case to help to defend the guy who shot Trayvon Martin, which I know people don't like me talking about America and American politics. Americans really don't like it because I'm a Brit. But you've got to understand, I've been working mainly with Americans since 2004. There are various areas of, I wouldn't call it expertise, but knowledge that I have. I've been working with American police and soldiers specifically since 2006 at the highest levels of training, including the air marshals, which is it's a pretty high level of training. So I have an understanding of how the law applies in different states as it applies to violent confrontation. And the I believe, even with Florida's stand your ground laws, that the shooting of Trayvon Martin was unlawful, and that the gentleman in question's behaviour was criminal, and that he should have gone to prison for, in my view, first-degree murder, because it's likely that he wanted to kill somebody. And I think they should have gone for that. That might have come down to manslaughter, but I certainly wasn't going to help to defend him. So I refused. Recently, the wife of one of the Menendez brothers has made a documentary, and off the back of a documentary, I think they're going to refresh an appeal for one of the Menendez brothers to come out, to be released early. And she wanted me as an expert to say, to offer some kind of testimony along the lines of, because of the specific psychopathic abuse that this one of the Menendez brothers, whose name I can't remember, had experienced, that he was forced to act in the way that he did. And I said, no. And she said, why? And I said, because I don't believe that that's true. So no, I'm not getting involved with that either. So yeah, I've been asked, but I don't do it. I'll never do it. So never bother asking me. Getting involved in legal cases is, I'm a YouTuber. Like there's no, I have a degree in psychology, but I have no business. I have no business being an expert witness. I don't like the term expert particularly. I've only really been involved in personality disorders since 2013, 6 years. There are other people who are far, 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 far more qualified than I am, and those are the people who you should be speaking to. I don't like the use of expert witnesses, and I usually don't go the way people think I will go when it comes to high-profile cases. I usually go in the other direction. As a carry on to that, I do think if you're being followed around at night by somebody who is armed, that you should actually consider violence as a potential option for handling that scenario. But it should be your last resort. It should be your last resort. I hope people can hear me very clearly on that one. Violence, if you open the Pandora's box about violence, the outcome can be really, really bad. as it was in the Trayvon Martin case. But I know how I was, when that case unfolded, I know how I was training people at that time, and I know what the protocols were. And I would have said, if you're being followed by a stranger who you think is lingering around you with intent and you suspect is armed, you should consider violence as a potential option of response to that. So, yes, moving swiftly on. How to deal. Oh, and have you noticed the trend to shame those who go no contact by referring to practice of ghosting in a negative context? Well, going no contact isn't ghosting. Ghosting is where you diminish contact with somebody for no reason. Going no contact, going NC, going to North Carolina is a. I think Sam Vaknin developed that concept. Pretty sure he did, and that was because you've been given no choice. Because any and all communication with that person is an opportunity for them to exploit and abuse, whether it be by text, whether it be by the phone, whether you just see them when you pick up your kids at school and you look over at the other car and they're there. Any and all contact has been demonstrated time and again over a period of time to be poisonous. So you have no choice. Ghosting, I think, comes from the dating world, and I think it's just what you do when you can't be asked. You've got off the person, you can't be asked seeing them anymore, but you don't have the human decency to say, listen, when I met you the other night, your breath really stank, and you accidentally spat some of your food that you were eating on my arm, and I got grossed out, and I don't want to have sex with you anymore. So that's the thing. Why did I give such a graphic example? I think it's probably time for me to go. Ghosting is always implies, as far as I know, that for no reason whatsoever other than that you just couldn't be bothered to say, disappear, that you pull out. And I'm not. And by the way, I don't think you should ever ghost anybody. I really don't. I think you should be an adult. You should maintain some degree of manners and politeness, and you should always say to somebody like, "Listen, stop, just stop." Why did high-profile case teams contact you if your status doesn't match the work? Because we had a disagreement about my status, and in America, and probably now also in Britain, but wouldn't get into the legal system, notoriety is the same as status, and I don't think that that's right. I don't have a PhD in the subject. There are people who do. It's ludicrous to consider me before somebody who has a doctorate in the subject. Ludicrous, ludicrous. So I would never, I'd never consent to that. It's insane. It's completely insane. And people's lives are decided on that. And you know, God in heaven, America is one country I'd never want to get into legal trouble in. My God, never. I mean, they hand out sentences like jelly beans over there. I could say the wrong thing, make some ironic comment that was, dependent on dry British humor that didn't fly well in Florida, and they thought I was saying this instead of, and somebody's going to get another 10 years thrown at them, or somebody's going to be released who I actually wanted to see rot in prison for the rest of it. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You've got, not only that, I mean, you've seen these documentaries on Netflix, right? Where they bring in these so-called witnesses, these expert witnesses, these clowns, these fame-seeking ass clowns, and people's lives are ruined by the nonsense and the gibberish they spew out. No, it's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Not that I would go in there and lie and spew gibberish, but it just, I'm not qualified for that job, and I'm not having major decisions about jail time made based on my opinion. It's ludicrous, nonsense. Wouldn't do it. I'll do one more and then I'll go. Is there a cure for being painfully self-aware? Meditation, my child, meditation. Psycho Mother-in-Law 2019 Lifetime on YouTube, says Christy. That might be worth a look. I've not seen that. Stone Papa Smurf says R.I.P. Patrice. Rest in pimp, baby. Rest in pimp. That's actually a really interesting story Patrice O'Neill tells of his experience of going to prison. I recommend people look up. It was on the Opie and Anthony show, and it's Patrice jail story. If you look on YouTube, it's very, very interesting. Making a Murderer was full of experts. Yes. Okay. ScatCP says the US hands out sentences like jelly beans. Compared to the UK with the hate speech laws, I beg to differ. Well, you should look up, for example, what you can get in America for holding a gun without a license, what your maximum potential jail sentence is, and then look at what it is in the United Kingdom as one very simple example. The US is, when I say they hand out sentences like jelly beans, I mean the years. In fact, I think I said the years. Well, I meant to say the years. The sentences are very, very long. Not everywhere, not in every state, and there's been huge miscarriages of justice where people have killed people and then they see the inside of a jail cell for like 3 years, and then they're out, on probation. But no, time is handed out in America way more than anywhere else in the world that I'm familiar with. Even in Asia, they don't hand out sentences in terms of time like America would. So yeah, that was my point. But I mean, look it up and compare it for yourself. Don't listen to me. Okay, ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I hope that was useful, and hope you could see, like, there's an explanation for the types of themes I want people to be looking at and considering for themselves at the moment, because I think it's really, really going to help you. So thank you for that, and I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. Thank you.